Hello, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to our online conference, RETASTE, Rethink Food Waste, which is organized by the Hellenic Mediterranean University and the Harokopio University on May 6 and May 7. Let me also say buenos dias, ohayo gozaimasu, shalom, as we have people connected from all over the world. My name is Thanos Belalidis from Simpraxis team, the communication agency that assists with the efficient organization of a challenging two parallel sessions, about 100 speakers event. I'm an accredited mediator, and it will be my privilege to assist with event hosting, efficient time management. So I will not let you alone while you are presenting. We have to be on time. There are a lot of people speaking, and question handling, alongside my colleague, Pavlos Atheneos. Why did the event organizers chose this provocative title, Rethink Food Waste? Because some parameters of our food management are really disturbing. 21% of our landfills consist of food waste, and at the same time, 10% of the population of Europe cannot afford a quality meal every second day. 690 million people in the world are undernourished, and 40% of the world food production is wasted at some stage of the supply chain. So today's cross-thematic conference urges us to think again about how we treat our precious food and the natural resources that are wasted between the agricultural fields and our forks. Our guests, a plethora of accredited scientists, contribute to the dialogue on these challenging issues and promote innovative and feasible food waste tackling solutions, of which some can be implemented in our own homes. Please do not hesitate to send us your comments and your questions throughout this two-day event. I'm now pleased to welcome the representatives of the two universities which organized today's event. Mr. Thrasivoulos Manios, Vice Rector of the Hellenic Mediterranean University from Heraklion, and Ms. Katia Lazaridis, Professor, Head of the Department of Geography of the Harokopio University, Athens, Greece. Our colleagues, Mr. Manios, Mrs. Lazaridis, will declare the opening of this event. Welcome, welcome.
Well, welcome to everybody. Dear friends, good morning, it's good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. Which part of the world you're attending this conference from. As we have delegates attending our conference from all over the world, from well in the west of Greece, in USA and Canada, till as far east as Japan. And we're very happy for that, although we would prefer to have you with us here today. Well, thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us through your screens. Special thanks devoted especially to those joining from completely different time zones, but I'm sure that our common passion to combat food waste will overcome such time span difficulties. I'm Katia Lazaridis, and together with my good from student times friends, Professor Thrasivoulos Manios, we're really happy to be able to welcome you to the RETASTE conference on food waste prevention, valorization, and sustainable management. The last many months have been a strange time for conferences, as just for everything else in our lives. It was the very beginning of February, last year, February 2020, when we had a meeting with Thrasivoulos to discuss the last details of the RETASTE conference, which was supposed to take place in April 2020. Well, it didn't. It is well known that Thrasivoulos is a positive thinking, optimistic person, while I'm probably on the opposite side of the optimism spectrum. So I was a bit worried, just a bit, that this bloody new virus that we were just starting to hear about could put the conference at risk. I could never imagine that this would go on for 15 months and go on and go on. It really proved tougher than I could imagine 15 months ago, that probably any one of us in Europe could imagine 15 months ago. But also, humanity demonstrated ingenuity and capacity at a speed and scale that we also couldn't imagine at the time. We went virtual at no time for work, for education, even to see family, friends, to have virtual get-togethers, and of course for conferences. Virtual has been a tremendous way to stay connected and engaged, to get our jobs done while keeping people safe. It has also opened a world of accessibility and inclusion that hadn't existed before and made many things easier. It's easy to attend this conference from different parts of the world at much lower cost, as you don't need to travel, probably in an easier way from your office, from your home, depending where you are. But as critical as virtual has been to getting life done this past year, all this virtual had its drawbacks and unforeseen costs, especially when we look at virtual conference. There was a loss of connection. We all love being together, and networking at breaks is probably one of the most valuable aspects of conference. Of course, in RETASTE, we tried to replace that virtual to the extent possible. There was also an increase in distractions, as there could always be an email and a phone to answer. But of course, we hope that we will all keep our distractions very limited due to the interesting themes of the conference. And of course, there is a virtual burnout. Many people say that I cannot take any more virtual things. I cannot do so many virtual things. Actually, I cannot really get engaged in virtual everything. However, virtual has specific advantages for conferences, and it's very, very likely that the world, which seems to be getting out of this unprecedented difficulties, will keep some of the benefits of this virtual. It is very likely that next conferences will keep a hybrid profile, having the in situ local conference where we can all meet together and join and exchange ideas and have this excellent conference coffee that I have really missed, but also provide the possibility for a long distance attending, as this might be easier and of course cheaper for many of us. Finally, and we really hope that the RETASTE conference, which started as a project-based conference, will be here with us again, and we will all be together in 2 years' time in a hybrid event. So we really aspire for RETASTE to become a biannual conference event, a regular event on food waste. And why food waste? Because the same way we demonstrated ingenuity and intelligence and technological and scientific capacity to combat the COVID-19 crisis, we need to demonstrate to combat food waste. We will listen why in all the next 2 days, but we already listened the basic numbers. It's a huge problem, putting at risk the continuation of life on spacecraft Earth as we know it and as we want it to be. Therefore, we need to combat it, and we need to be very, very clever about it. Thank you for me. Professor Mañós will take you with his optimism in the next steps.
Thank you, Katja. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everybody, and thank you all for participating in the RETASTE conference. For a person like me, well, Katja described me very well, but for a person like me, which I believe we are more or less stage performers, we love the stage, we love to be interacting with the people who we talk to, or we take energy and strength from the faces of the people who are listening to us. This thing right now is very difficult. However, we have to adjust in this new reality that the COVID virus have created for everybody. So a few numbers now. In the RETASTE conference, we had more than 150 submissions, which resulted in about 80 oral presentations. We have 10 very important keynote speakers, which I hope they will provide you with interesting and hopefully information that will allow you to continue your work in the future. We had participants from more than 30 countries and 5 continents, which provides us with the idea that this is a real global conference. And I do agree with Katja. I hope we will be able to repeat it sometime in the next couple of years. Some of the selected presentations will be invited to submit 2 special issues. One is for the Resource Journal, and the other is the Circular Economy and Sustainability Journal. So for people who are interested in publishing through those two journals, please wait, and your invitations will appear very soon after the conference. I would like to thank the organizing committees, both the organizing and the scientific committee, for helping us getting here. It's not easy to organize a teleconference. I'm telling you that. It requires a lot of energy. It requires probably more energy than the ordinary conferences because you really don't know what you're going to have to tackle during the organization. Saying that, thanks again the Simpraxis team and Thanos especially for their help in organizing and actually realizing this conference. All this technical stuff make it very weird for me, at least. So thank you very much, guys, for helping us. I would like also to thank the Green Fund. The Green Fund is, for people who don't know it, is an organization of the Greek state who is funding various, as obviously from the name, green activities, and all of which is funding conferences like this. So the Green Fund has provided the money for realizing this conference, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank all of them for this funding, and allowed more than 100 participants from the local administration, mainly municipalities, regions, and waste authorities, to be able to participate in the conference. And that gives a great opportunity because we're going to have a large number of people from the local community to follow the conference and taking in all the new information which are important for realizing waste management strategies in their own facilities. I also like to thank all people involved in the two major projects. We are going to have a very strong presence in the conference, which is the avoidable and unavoidable food waste, the A2Q food project, which is funding from the Urban Initiative Action, and also the Food for Feed project, which is funding from the Live Action. And I think you'll be able to see the relevant presentations in the next couple of days. I see Thanos in my screen already, which means that I have to speed up my opening argument or whatever that is at this stage. So I would like also to say that to everybody, I hope you have organized your vaccination. It's the only way out of this crisis and this very strange position. And as I said earlier, a few weeks ago, some of us were too old to go to the squares and party, and too young to get vaccinated. But unfortunately, I have received my SMS from the vaccination authority, which means I'm not so young anymore as I thought I was. Anyway, again, thank you very much for participating in this conference. Thank you very much for waking up or staying up late to follow us and see what we're going to say to you. And I hope you enjoy the next couple of days. And we're here to receive any comments or any ideas, and of course, to see how we can cooperate in the future for any other funding opportunities that the Green Fund, I think Eleni Zika was following, we're going to provide us with another information regarding the European projects on waste management, and I hope we'll be able to cooperate in this essence. Thank you again, and let's start it. Thanos.
Thank you very much on my part. Thank you very much, Mrs. Lazaridis. Thank you very much, Mr. Magnos. It's a really great honor and privilege to be here with you. So no food to waste, but no time to waste also. So I'm going to proceed, even though it's not very comfortable, it's not very pleasant to be pushy about time. I'm going to do it in the next couple of days because the time is very precious and we have a lot of very precious presentations as well. So without further delay, I'm going to welcome our first keynote speaker, Mrs. Eleni Zika, Strategic Advisor of the European Research Council Executive Agency. Mrs. Zika is going to present her speech titled A Green Deal for the Planet, the role of frontier science and innovation in delivering a circular economy, the case of food waste. Welcome, welcome, and thank you very much for being here with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you and good morning to everyone. Kalimera, buenos dias, bonjour from Brussels. I'd like to start first of all by saying a big thank you to the organizers for including us in this first and wonderful conference on food waste on an issue that is actually of a global dimension and of concern to all of us. I'd like to talk to you today about how investment in frontier science and innovation can actually deliver a circular bioeconomy. And I will be using the case of food waste as an example of how funding can actually help enable solutions for such global challenges. I'd like to start first of all by a very aspiring statement that was made by the President of the European Commission a while ago when the European Green Deal was actually set out. She said that it is Europe's man on the moon moment, and it couldn't have been more or better said, I should say. It is an attempt at designing a set of very transformative policies to address a number of areas that are critical for combating climate change. The Green Deal is actually extremely comprehensive, and it is a very unique policy instrument and a very ambitious one that is going to be looking at how we can actually go from farm to fork, how we can make a just transition for us all in this climate challenge, how we can finance green projects, such as the one we'll be talking about today, how we can actually invest in better transport and greener industries, and more importantly, how we can protect nature. So as ambitious as it is, it's not actually far from becoming attainable. And there are many different ways to do so. And I think the circular bioeconomy is one of those enabling pathways that can drive the achievement of the European Green Deal goals. The circular bioeconomy, as the Research Commissioner has also stated, can actually deliver on Europe's economic prosperity, can help to produce fossil-free materials for a climate-neutral future, and can enhance more the protection of the environment and our ecosystems. And I will be talking to you today about specifically how investment in the circular bioeconomy, using the example of food waste, can actually drive not only growth and prosperity, but really our sustainable future. What is our understanding in Europe of the bioeconomy? It covers a number of different areas, from primary production to the utilization of processed biomass, to the development of bio-based materials, but also a very, let's say, service-oriented approach looking at ecosystems. It is actually very comprehensive, and it operationalizes all the innovative aspects of sustainability in a manner that can really drive economic growth with resource efficiency and circularity at the core of all of the operations. And it can actually also reduce our dependence on non-renewable resources while protecting biodiversity and environmental ecosystems. It is actually what many of us already do in our daily lives, but often don't even recognize. Why do we use food waste as an example of how circular bioeconomy can actually drive sustainable development? Because it is actually a huge global challenge, and some figures have already been provided by the organizers and our moderator. I don't want to repeat them all here, but it is really crucial to take away a key message. It is actually an enormous problem. 30% of food is lost or completely wasted, and that has a huge economic consequence, but also against the background of a growing population and loss of access to food, actually, for many in the world. This is very critical, not only economic problem, but a social one. The circular bioeconomy can actually help us think of ways to transform waste into valuable resources of all sorts. And so while there are a lot of inherent challenges in this process, there are also a lot of opportunities, not only from an economic perspective, but really from a social one. The problem is no less important in Europe as such. In fact, in a recent brief on food waste in the European Union that was produced by the JRC Knowledge Center for the Bioeconomy, it was indicated that 129 million tons of food waste were generated in the EU in 2011 alone, representing 20% of the food produced. Most of it is actually generated in the consumption stage, which is really critical, and it speaks to the opportunities that we have to drive change and deliver solutions for this huge issue. As I've already mentioned to you, the circular bioeconomy actually forms a solid basis for providing valuable products out of food waste. There's a high valorization potential, and what is really important to consider is how we can drive this valorization in a sustainable manner. And I'm not just speaking out of flat air. This is a graph that's actually showing you all the different added value products in the various sectors that can actually be produced through many different processing techniques from food waste. It covers sectors going from agriculture to pharmaceutical and cosmetic industry, to biomaterials, to textile, to the environmental sector and the chemical industry. So without going into the details of this graph, this is just really a notion of how rich the valorization potential of waste actually is. And as I said, it is actually a key goal for sustainable development, and this is clearly recognized under SDG 12, which makes explicit reference to halving per capita the global food waste at the retail and consumer levels to reduce food losses along production and supply chains. So we have an impetus to make this work. There are global development targets that we need to meet that are also very much recognized at our level in the European Union under the circular economy package and other policy initiatives. So what I'd like to focus discussing with you today is how investment in frontier excellent science and innovation can actually drive the solutions for addressing such a global challenge. And I'd like to remind you all, actually, the quote of a very important figure in research and innovation, Professor Fotis Kafatos, who was also the first president of the European Research Council, and should say started his path from Crete, and has inspired, actually, the development of many professors and investigators throughout the years. He actually said back in 2007, when the ERC was being launched, that what is the comparative advantage of EU in the future? Actually, against the backdrop of an increasingly old population, limited natural resources, what it is that can make the change of the difference is actually investing in research, because it is an integral part of our European culture tradition. Actually, it is a one-way street for Europe, and I should say globally. And the only way to make sure that investment pays back is excellence. So it is against the backdrop of this statement that I would like you to receive all the information about the different opportunities that our framework program Horizon Europe is offering. And I will be talking to you about several examples of projects that have been funded addressing waste and valorization in different manners, but also not only at the technical level, but rather also at social. So Horizon Europe is the framework program that has just been adopted for the next period of 7 years. And it has a rather complex structure, but I will be focusing today on speaking to you about Pillar 2 that actually encompasses funding opportunities in the area of the food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. And I will be also speaking to you about the funding opportunities offered by the European Research Council, which are actually purely investigator-driven based on excellence. And it is at the junction of this investment between frontier science and innovation that solutions can be delivered and deployed at large scale. So cluster 6 of Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe that I've just shown you is actually addressing a lot of different areas that are already described within the European Green Deal. There are 7 destinations which are outlined here in this slide that are actually going from looking at how we can improve and maintain biodiversity to how we can deliver fair, healthy, environmentally friendly food systems all the way from primary production to consumption. And there, the notion of food waste valorization is very much embedded. Looking at circular economy and bioeconomy sectors, as well as bio-based in particular, looking at the clean environment and zero pollution, looking at how we can deliver resilient and healthy communities at the rural or coastal or urban areas. So just as an example, you see how comprehensive this funding scheme is actually. One important part of that is actually within Cluster 6, the notion of creating, or let's say continuing, a public-private partnership called Circular Bio-Based Europe, which will be looking at how we can mobilize public and private stakeholders in research and demonstration for sustainable, inclusive, and circular bio-based solutions. The CBE partnership is actually a continuation of a public-private partnership which already exists. It is called Bio-Based Industries Joint Undertaking, and I was until recently the head of program there. And it actually is one of the key players in driving bio-based solutions that address as well the development and valorization of sustainable food chains across the board. BBI has actually funded already considerable number of projects looking at the valorization of side streams and waste. And I will just speak to you very briefly about two concrete examples, green protein in particular, which is attempting at transforming leftovers from green vegetables and field crops into high-grade protein for food. It is actually going to create a completely new value chain, boosting the local economy. And it is a very interesting example of how we can go from a valorization of a side stream up to the development of a very sustainable new value chain. Fungus chain is another example of valorization of side streams and agricultural waste. Actually, it's looking at transforming mushroom cultivation waste into food, cosmetics, and bioplastics. And it is demonstrating through an integrated cascading approach with more than 40% valorization of mushroom cultivation residues into high-value bio-based products. So it is actually also demonstrating improved environmental performance of the bio-based product and cost efficiency, which is really critical also for the broader uptake by market. It's looking also at how we can increase capacity of industries and SMEs to innovate actually for the valorization of agricultural waste. And it is, I believe, one of the most interesting business models actually in our current portfolio. Other examples of projects that have been funded through the previous framework program, Horizon 2020, that ran up until the end of last year, actually include this specific project of Refresh, which is looking at how we can create a very resource-efficient food and drink supply chain, reducing food waste across the EU by 30% by 2025, and maximizing the value of waste that can be avoided, in fact, from packaging materials as well. What is interesting about Refresh is it is also developing a framework for action, a model based on strategic agreements across all stages of the supply chain. And in the links below, you can also find the policy recommendations that have been delivered to improve food waste and prevention as a result of this project. There are other examples as well that are looking at how we can valorize and create new value chains leading to zero waste targets and value creation through the valorization of waste and sludge from aquaculture. And in particular here, looking at how through local recirculation of sludge, actually in production water, can be used as feed or nutrient source for algae feed production. So what these examples show actually that there's a diverse and very broad number of solutions that can be delivered across the different sectors and for different purposes. Wasabi provides another example that is extremely interesting as to how we can go from 6 different raw materials, actually, that is also side streams from fisheries, that can be then used to produce bioactive peptides for a number of different applications, from nutraceutical to food and feed applications, to protein-based food ingredients, etc. So the examples I've shown you today until now actually focused mostly on delivering solutions to market, and that they are typically at a later or a higher TRI scale. But investment in basic science and frontier research that really pushes the borders of scientific and technological advancement is as crucial in delivering solutions for food waste, but also many other global challenges. So I'd like to take a few minutes to talk to you about what the European Research Council does, and that is actually a renowned funder, a top funder across the globe, that is ensuring financial autonomy for its investigators so that they can work on any topic of their own choice with a team of their own choice. It is actually a very prestigious award, a prestigious funding scheme. And I wanted to highlight here some of the areas which I thought could be very interesting in the context of our discussion today, and that could be also of interest to applicants who may wish to consider applying. I've already mentioned that this a renowned funder. We have already supported more than 10,000 researchers, leading to a number of awards and Nobel Prizes, and overall representing 13 billion euro investment in research. But as I said, research and innovation go hand in hand, and the outcomes of the ERC actually have led several projects into the development of more than 100 spin-off companies in a number of domains. And here I just wanted to show you very shortly that the investment also in industrial biotech and environmental applications, many of which are actually addressing food waste solutions, are representing a very sizable level of investment of about 420 million euros. Now, there are a number of examples of funded research from the European Research Council that are actually tackling climate change, looking at sustainable cities and communities, but looking also at the sustainability of food systems with projects such as Kung Fu Bio, but also looking at a number of other solutions. R&I food projects across the 24 different programs of Horizon 2020 represent, as I've already noted, a very sizable investment. And as you see here in this graph, the European Research Council comes out on top in terms of number of projects funded within this domain before the Sustainable Food Systems Organization and followed by BBI. And I'd like to close my presentation with an example of a project that we have funded in the European Research Council that is actually looking at how we can assess the practices and sustainability potentials of city-based food sharing economies, mainly by looking at how we can determine the form of function and governance of these practices and assess their impact and potential to reorient eating practices. So it's really important to consider that food waste as a social problem, global challenge, needs to be addressed at several levels, not only at scientific and technical, but also through the influence of practices of consumers and societies and markets. So with that, and keeping in mind that there is time constraints that should be respected, I would like to close my intervention by thanking very much all those colleagues from the European Commission and the Bio-Based Industries Joint Undertaking who have contributed with input and data for this intervention of today, as well as my colleagues at the European Research Council. And with that, I would like to say that I'm very grateful for your attention. You have here all the information through which you can follow us, or news alerts for the Council as such, and I would be very happy to take your questions or comments. Thank you very much again.
Mrs. Zika, thank you very much for the enlightening presentation. We really appreciate your thoughts and positions about this critical issue. I have received one question that I find very interesting. I would like to ask you whether you are aware what percentage of food production is left on the fields because the size and shape doesn't meet our aesthetic standards.
I don't have the figures off the top of my head, but I can certainly retrieve that and communicate that back to the participants. But I think it's actually a significant number. But I would prefer not to give you any wrong numbers at this point, but I'd be happy to revert.
But it's definitely a significant quantity, isn't it?
Yes.
It's amazing.
It is actually. This notion of aesthetic, absolutely. I think that's why I think talking about social intervention for tackling food waste challenges actually one of the important drivers and one of the important paths that should be invested in. And that's why I really wanted also to highlight this notion of funding in technological developments is just as important as funding actually projects that are looking at how we can change our mindsets and our approach to food.
I will keep your comments on mindsets and approach. I find it really amazing that a carrot can be wasted simply because it doesn't have the right shape. A carrot that will be peeled and cut into pieces. Thank you so much for your time, Mrs. Zika.
Thank you very much.